For those of you that are here this morning, thank you very much for coming. My name is Jennifer Demar, and I represent the nonprofit organization called the Guatemala Service Project. We're located in Oconomowoc, and Tammy Poe is with me today. She is on the board of directors for the organization. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about our organization and the types of projects that we do, but also specifically to focus on the vitamins program, because that is the way that you're currently supporting us. And I thought maybe you'd like to know a little bit more about it. My husband John is also here, and we're both in this photo with our 3 children. This was taken in 2015. Our 2 older children were born in Guatemala and adopted into our family. And Tammy and I have that in common, children that were born in Guatemala. And that's what led to my original interest. We took in 2015, our family traveled to Guatemala as a heritage journey, just an experience to give them more of an understanding about the country where they were born. They were 2 years old when they joined our family, but didn't really have any memories from that time. So, one of the things that I like to do to give a brief overview of Guatemala and what the needs are there and what our nonprofit hopes to accomplish is basically to help make improvements in health or education. Those are our 2 focal points. But even within those, there are some ways of separating health and separating education. And I like mentioning that the 5 areas in Guatemala that need the most attention or that create the problem that we can help work to lessen are malnutrition, contaminated water supply, insufficient and unaffordable health care, lack of basic needs, and an uneducated population. So as you can imagine, if you have an uneducated population and a society that doesn't have enough food to eat or the right types of food or problems with contaminated water, they have many things stacked up against them. Guatemala actually also, not that long ago, went through a civil war. Their civil war ended in the 1990s. So they're still trying to recover from that. So within each of these areas, we try to make little improvements. Under malnutrition, we have a vitamins, seeds, chickens, and fortified rice program, 4 different programs. The vitamins program I'll talk about a little bit more in depth, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview of some of the other ones also. Every year we work with an organization in Guatemala called Sinacri, and Sinacri is a seed cultivator that happens to be in the same community where we do most of our work. So they grow seeds that are native to Guatemala, and we distribute those to schools and families. The schools use them in educational gardens, and then individual families that have land to plant can also grow their own vegetables. We have a program called 10 bucks a cluck, which basically means it costs about $10 to buy a chicken. And after we've raised $75, which includes 1 rooster, 4 hens, and a bag of chicken feed, we'll identify a family that is interested in raising those chickens, either for the eggs and to have protein in their diet, or to raise chickens for them to sell at market. Usually we hope that they do both, actually. But their commitment into that project is that they will build a chicken coop. So once a family has been identified that has a coop ready, constructed for them, we bring the chickens. And then we partner with an organization here in the States called Global Community Outreach. and they are the ones that have included us in their rice distribution program, the Mana Pack. So those are the things that we do to help combat malnutrition. As far as the contaminated water supply, we approach the problem based on the community requesting or needing support. So what I mean by that is that some communities have a potable water source, but just not a way to get to it. So we provide, work with organizations that dig wells, or provide cisterns or water storage tanks, and then trench and lay the pipe to connect the water source to the individual homes. But not all communities have that potable water source close by. And for them, we provide water filters. So an individual family would receive a water filter then, that they could bring the water, dump it into the filter, and then out the tap would provide clean water. So the type of work we do to address the contaminated water supply really depends on the communities that we work in. We do some of each. And actually one of the blessings for me this week is to be able to attend a grand opening of a water project that just recently completed. That was one of the purposes of my trip this week, so very exciting. The lack of basic health care. I was speaking, I didn't catch your name, I'm sorry.
John.
I was speaking with John before the meeting started, and he told me that he had some experiences traveling to Guatemala delivering dental supplies, and that he would load up suitcases full and take dental supplies or surgical examination gloves, things like that, to Guatemala. We do that too. Because there are often, we work with some healthcare professionals and clinics here that have excess, or they're not going to use it, so we take it to people who don't have those things and would use it. So we take things like first aid, medical equipment like blood pressure cuffs and stethoscopes and things like that. We've taken some portable scales, and we've even once donated an ultrasound machine. So we take equipment like that in suitcases, or fill up a container shipment, or a partial. We share that cost with other organizations. We built a health clinic and are populating it with equipment. Did that at the end of November last year. It was completed. And we've donated assistive devices, and by that I mean hearing aid sound amplifiers, or reader glasses, or wheelchairs, things like that. There's a wheelchair in my van that is headed down there this week also. Within the lack of basic needs or low quality of life, one of the things that is a way that another church has been supporting us is through, they have a sewing ministry. And the sewing ministry sews diapers and feminine hygiene. And we take those items to Guatemala also. Because as you can imagine, I didn't mention it, but Guatemala is the second most impoverished country in the Western Hemisphere behind Haiti. So if you know of anyone that does mission work in Haiti, it's very similar, the needs in Guatemala. And if you don't have food to eat, you're probably not going to have food to buy disposable diapers or feminine hygiene either. So they appreciate the donations of those types of things. We've provided bunk beds, low emission wood burning stoves that vent outside the home, and all of those things help families have a more healthy or ecological or convenient or modest and comfortable way of life. Because when you don't have a lot, it's nice to have some dignity, and through some of those gifts, we provide that. They have a very uneducated population. And one of the ways that we address that is by sponsoring students to attend school. We have a scholarship program. And that's actually one of our favorite programs. In Guatemala, the government provides assistance for children through 6th grade. And so most communities you visit will have an elementary school. Not all families in the community can still afford to send their kids to school, because even though it's supposed to be free, it's really only a partial subsidy that the government provides, and the families still have to contribute also. But beyond 6th grade, most communities don't have a middle school or a high school, and there's only one public university in the whole country of 18 million people. So the dream for most people in the rural indigenous areas we support really don't have too many dreams beyond 6th grade. But we're trying to change the mindset and provide hope and opportunities for students that want to learn to have access to that dream. And then, which one? I think I hit them all. So I want to talk just a little bit more about our SEEDS program. We deliver seeds to school-age children, and I mentioned this, the school in these communities are kindergarten through 6th grade. So kindergarten through 6th graders in 2 rural communities receive daily multivitamins. We also distribute prenatal vitamins in the same community. Now, we started this program a little over 2 years ago because we had done a well child clinic, so to speak, and determined that such a significant portion of the students there were below charted expectations and showed mild to severe levels of malnutrition. And when we first started working with these communities, our project manager said, well, you know, the opportunities are wide open here for whatever way you think you can help. They're asking for clothes and shoes and vitamins and school supplies and stoves and water filters and on and on and on. So the very first time we visited these 2 communities, we brought shoes and vitamins and promised to, at the time we had enough vitamins with us just to give 1 bottle per family. And if the family had 2 kids or they had 10 kids, they got 1 bottle. And this, we said, this is going to be a start, and you can get in the habit of taking a vitamin, and then the next time we come, we'll be more organized and have had some opportunities to raise funds and share our ideas with, you know, supporters and churches and Rotary clubs, things like that. And then fortunately it has grown so that we have been able to provide vitamins on a consistent basis for those same group of kids. And then thankfully, when given the opportunity for all of these children to have another well child clinic and for their results to be gauged and the metrics taken, every person that was previously mildly or severely malnourished was no longer. It was reported to us, even before we took those metrics, that the children were not listless. They were smiling and active, and you know, when your body isn't receiving what it needs to function, you all know, and it's not just vitamins, it's lack of sleep or whatever happens to contribute to less energy. Those kids showed it, but they don't now. And the vitamins has just been one of the best programs within our organization that has demonstrated the proof that with just a little bit of support, it can really change lives, because not only are those children more active, but it means they're more generally healthy. It can stay attending school and aren't having to miss school from as many illnesses. They can run and play, get better exercise, and it's just very heartwarming to see the results of our vitamins program. So you are the second church that has volunteered to do vitamin collections for us. We do take vitamins each time we travel in our luggage, but we are only allotted 50 pounds now, and 2 bags. They're not free, but the cost for those extra bags are a little more affordable up to the first 2. So that we also arrange for shipments through an organization in Tennessee called Vine International. And Vine International exists to be a support to nonprofits here that are working in schools, orphanages, communities in Guatemala. They have a very special niche. But about 3 or 4 times a year, we will ship things from here and share the expense of a container shipment. So even if we collect more vitamins than we can personally take, then we have the option to have them shipped through Vine International. So I know that this is your first exposure to our organization, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have, but I want to really thank you for, if any of you have contributed to the Vitamins Project that's ongoing, that's wonderful, and I'm thanking you personally. But there are a few more weeks left in the collection. After this trip, our next one is in the middle of December, so there will be, the vitamins that you collect will be transported in December. Had just a couple more slides to share that these are the types of organization. We have a very niche nonprofit organization, and so we have a niche support base also. But in addition to educators and healthcare professionals, which makes sense because those are our areas of focus, we get a lot of support from adoptive families, especially those that have adopted from Guatemala, and churches and Rotary clubs. Rotary clubs, one of their main missions is clean water and eradicating polio throughout the world. They have global service interests also. And just a few quick moments to share some of our favorite programs. Our first one was actually a library and computer lab. We have donated 5 elementary school libraries and 4 computer labs. The most expensive one was building and outfitting that health clinic that I mentioned. The most bang for the buck is our seed packet and community garden project, because for $5 a family, they can grow a summer's worth of vegetables. So every year when we fundraise for our seeds program, it's very easy to make a huge difference with such a little amount. The quantifiable metrics I mentioned was our vitamins program, and this photo here was taken by Tammy of one of the boys receiving vitamins from one of the shipments we took down in our luggage, and that's actually my favorite vitamins related photo. It's just so cute. And I think that one we shared with you for your church newsletter or bulletin also. Most fun is the $10 a cluck, because people that travel with us have the opportunity to deliver the chickens and hand them over, and it's for someone who wasn't raised on a farm. Handling chickens is a big fun deal. And then my personal favorite is our scholarship program, because our project manager in Guatemala, who first brought the idea of the scholarship program to my attention, his favorite motto and his personal belief is that if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, you'll feed him for a lifetime. And so for an organization like ours, it's important to address immediate needs that are brought to our attention, but we want to make a sustainable difference in Guatemala. And part of that is providing them opportunities to develop new industry, be more educated, and the scholarship program is one way that we do that. So we have a blog and social media. If you have any questions after what you're going to have the opportunity to ask today, I would invite you to contact Tammy or myself. We're both local and always very excited to talk about our work in Guatemala. So, does anyone have any questions about the organization or Guatemala in general, or specifically the vitamins program? Go ahead.
Okay, your communities are mostly in the islands.
Yes.
What is the, is it coffee production? Where most of the people work, per se?
That's a great question. In the name of the town where our focus is and where our project manager lives is called Chichicastenango. It's in the department of Quiché, and by department, those are like states. You know, in the United States, each state is divided, or the country is divided into states. In Guatemala, they're divided into departments. And the Quiché department is in the center of Guatemala. The center of Guatemala is called the highlands because the terrain is very high. There are mountains, volcanoes, and that's part of the natural state, which provides them challenges. Transportation, it's hard to lay roads in mountainous areas, and as a result, their industry is not very strong in that area because of the difficulties with transportation. So in that area, Chichicastenango does happen. It has one thing going for it, and that is that they have the largest outdoor market in all of Central America. So people from all over will come and barter or sell their goods, both to locals and tourists. So tourism is a very significant source of income in Chichicastenango. However, with the pandemic and the lack of tourism, they have had more significant challenges of recent. But other than that, there aren't a lot of commercial or industrial opportunities in the area that we serve. And because of the terrain, that makes it more difficult. So the people that are employed are in agriculture. Chichicastenango is known for apples and peaches and avocados. So they will grow those things and then take them, sell them in their market and then in other places in Guatemala too. But other than farming, there aren't a lot of opportunities. So their rainy season every year goes from April to October. We're just getting to the end of their rainy season. But this year's been kind of tough on them in that regard too. So it really is cyclical and up to chance whether they have a good year or a bad year, just like a farmer here. Thank you. Did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering now, what specific vitamins are they? It's probably on that website, you know, everything, how if you wanted to become personally involved and participate, it would tell you what to buy.
Thank you for that question. And I should have been more forthright with that. So the vitamins that we take or buy there are children's multivitamins. We like gummy or chewable to make it easy for the kids, or prenatal vitamins. And I'm really thankful that you asked because it seems like there's always a group that will just be thinking vitamins in general and bring and offer things that are outside of what we hope to receive. Any vitamins are good, but we're really concentrating on children's multivitamins and prenatal vitamins. With the prenatal vitamins, we're not also helping the mom, but we're helping the baby even before they're born and able to chew or swallow vitamins, so an early head start in that regard. We take vitamins and contributions in two ways. One are the physical vitamins. If you went and you bought vitamins and brought them into the collection place, wherever it's located here at church, we would take them with us or ship them. In that case, we need vitamins to have an expiration date that is far enough into the future so that if we're not traveling right away or in order to accommodate the customs and immigration requirements for the validity. We can't take anything that's expired or close to expired. So we're looking for vitamins that have a 6-month forward dating. So if you purchase vitamins, before you buy them, take a look at the expiration date and make sure that it's still 6 months out. But we also take monetary donations and buy vitamins in Guatemala. They're more expensive there, so it's actually a benefit to take them, but if you buy in Guatemala, you don't have to pay for shipping, you don't have to worry about them being expired or any of those issues. So don't let me dissuade you from participating in either way that you prefer. We're thankful for both physical and monetary donations. Yes, sir.
What is the government and security situation there? I'm thinking if I spent time in El Salvador and comparing, also there was a news bit on NPR about the elections coming up and difficulties because of that also.
Our elections or their elections?
Theirs.
Okay.
Presidential election.
Guatemala is, there are some areas that are controlled by gangs, and there's drug trafficking in Guatemala. However, and there's a lot of violence that is still stemming from the end of their civil war in the 1990s. But it is focused in certain pockets. The area that we visit is actually one of the safest places in the country, and I never feel unsafe. There are, and we don't stay or visit the areas where there is known crime or issues that would make us feel concerned. But the very first time we traveled in 2015, and we were going to even the tourist places like Antigua. Antigua is like a Spanish colonial tourist mecca, just very, very famous part of Guatemala. And we would walk past businesses, banks, restaurants, and see armed guards with a strap of bullets across their chests and holding automatic weapons. And it was the first time I had ever witnessed that, and I thought, oh my gosh, what did I just step into? But everyone assured me that's why there's not a problem, because there is active patrol. They have a national police and a military police and a tourism police. Guatemala relies on tourism so heavily that they take the time to make the tourists feel safe. With regard to their elections, the current president, just like the current president here, you're going to have a segment of people that are very happy with his performance, and there are others that call him bad names, and it's the same there. I don't think that there will be any sort of national problem with government instability there, because there are so many more political parties, and it's so much more dissipated that there's not one that would overpower any other, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Anybody else?
The seeds, could you talk more about that?
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, if you wanted to contribute, either you buy the seeds or you send the money and you guys buy the seeds.
Mm-hmm. Seeds is one thing that you can't immigrate, or you can't transport across, you can't import.
Of course.
So all of the fundraising we do for our seeds project is just raising money to take there to purchase the seeds locally. And not only just because of that, but the seeds that are grown there are grown specific for their climate and conditions. So if we were to bring seeds from here, they may not do as well there as they would here.
That makes sense.
But we do a lot of fundraising for that project in March and April. Because to align with their rainy season, we provide the seeds at the time of year where they would grow the best. And we have fundraisers that ask for donations as small as $5, because $5 would provide a set of 5 packets of seeds. This year we did carrots, cabbage, radishes, beets, and do you remember, Tammy, what the 5th one was?
Not offhand.
Peas? Beans?
Carrots, cabbage.
No. Anyway, it's those types of vegetables that they love receiving radishes because they pop up in about a month. Oh, tomatoes. Tomatoes was the other one. So, yeah, they really love not only the fact that they can be responsible for the production of something that benefits their family instead of feeling like someone else is doing the providing. They're doing the providing. They're planting, they're harvesting, they're weeding, they're chopping and cleaning and cutting and eating. So for us, it's very nice because it's so little money that provides such a big difference, that provides a lot of help. And it's it's one of those types of help that is more immediate in nature. And I said that we do some projects like that, but also like the sustaining projects. The sustaining part of that project is in the education, because instead of just handing seeds, we have the organization that cultivates the seeds themselves, provide instruction on planting depth and spacing and watering and things like that. So that's the educational part of the seeds project, is the part that's sustaining. So once someone receives seeds for the first time, then they have the knowledge that they can repeat that year after year.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
So when is the next ship out there? When is this, the next trip to Guatemala?
Today.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going this afternoon, just for a little over a week. But the next group travel experience is in December.
I see.
And we have been averaging about 3 trips a year. Next year, I think they're going to be in March, July, and October.
I see. Have a wonderful trip.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Yes, ma'am.
I sponsor a couple kids in Guatemala through in International Children, and they get a little food and clothing, but I think they go to school. I get that impression that they go to school. And one time I went to Guatemala with Faith at Work, and we partnered with Pava, a company there that does cement work, and we helped build a school up in the mountains. And I was just amazed at how happy the children all seemed.
Oh,
the mother
yes.
would have one on her back and one on her side and selling trinkets from her head, and they were just content.
I'm glad you had that experience, and thank you for sponsoring those kids. It makes a huge difference in their opportunities, not only now, but for their children and grandchildren. That's one of the things that I've grown to love and that I appreciate most about working in Guatemala is the mindset of the people that live there. And you would think if you don't have experience in an area that is afflicted by poverty, it's poverty and resources only and not in happiness, because despite the fact that they have so little, they are the happiest, most reverent, kind, community-oriented people I've ever met. And you're right, they're so happy. Mm-hmm. And don't need any pity at all. I always tell people that we may be rich in resources or in bank accounts, but I feel richer when I'm there. Just the happiness and mindset and community focus. So it's an honor and a privilege to help people in Guatemala. Nancy.
So you built this health clinic, which is wonderful. Now, how is it staffed and run? I mean, getting the building and getting the supplies is one thing, but keeping it going is,
That's right, and that's a good question. This community where we built the clinic is actually one of the 2 communities that is participating in the vitamins program. And this community only has 27 families, but they live in the valley. It's called Panimache Quinto Bajo, and the word bajo means low. When you leave the main road, you descend several hundred meters and get to it takes about 20 minutes to drive to the center where the school and the health clinic are, and that's really all that exists in that small village other than the 27 families that live there. So we built a 4-room concrete block construction clinic. It has 2 examination rooms, a waiting area, and a supplies bodega, like to store the medicine and equipment. And what they had before that, their access to healthcare involved a rural health clinic that was about an hour away, where once a month they would send a traveling doctor and nurse to visit the community and just provide, anyone that has any health concerns, meet at the school, because that's where they would come, and they would set up a cot and tend to anyone that came to the back of the school for health care. But there was no cleanliness, there was no privacy, and they had never really dreamed of having a health clinic. But we first heard about the need because in Guatemala they also make prevalent use of midwives. And there was a midwife that helped with the pregnancy and labor and delivery for the kids in the community. And we spoke with her about the environment she had to work in. And again, it was a cot, and so they try to hang a sheet or something to give the woman some privacy. But now that we've built the clinic and bought examination tables and scales and some basic medical equipment, it is open not only to that visiting doctor and nurse on a monthly basis, that's still happening, but also organizations that, like for example, the dental clinics that John had participated in the past. We can invite other nonprofit organizations or traveling medical teams to use our clinic and bring more services there now that they've got the appropriate space for it.
okay, so it isn't like staffed full-time.
It is not staffed full-time. The midwife, as needs of the women in the community have them, she will have access to the clinic, and then the once a month when the visiting doctor comes. Those are the typical uses. And then, like I said, it was just completed last November, but we're trying to encourage more medical teams to come and bring specialized care to the communities too. Dentists, eye doctors, physical therapists, whatever we can do, surgical teams. Good question. Any other questions? Tammy, would you like to share any personal anecdotes or anything I may have missed?
Second, 100% the people. It's absolutely amazing. You go there to bring them things, and they're so grateful and so thankful that they're giving you things, and you actually go home with more. I mean, more in your heart and more in your suitcase, and it's unbelievable that someone with so little can be so giving and so loving. So.
And you've traveled there?
I absolutely have. As Jennifer said, my youngest was adopted in Guatemala. So we traveled during the adoption process several times, and then I traveled with my daughter, and then now I've traveled with Jennifer 3 or 4 times. My daughter's gone a couple of times with Jennifer. So I've been back, 5 or 6 times. So. And this is my grandson, and he belongs to my daughter that is from Guatemala. So And this is a good snapshot of when you saw the little boy with the vitamin bottle, you know, that the children are so beautiful and, again, so loving but so needy. So needy.
Do they still have the big issue with the languages there? Because I imagine they speak Quiche there.
You're right.
As opposed to Spanish.
Spanish is the official language of Guatemala, but there are 23 Mayan languages. And the one that is spoken in the area that we support is called Quiche. And there are about 1 million speakers of Quiche. And the community where we work, only 70% of the population knows Spanish. They all know Quiche, or most of them, but Spanish is taught in schools. So once children start school, that's when they learn Spanish, because in their homes they are speaking the language that their parents speak. And so that's been a little bit of a challenge for me. I every time I go, I try to engage as much as possible without the use of our project manager, who is also our translator. So I'm improving a lot in Spanish, but I have a Quiche vocabulary of about 20 words, I think, and they love hearing me try. But it's a difficult language because it's spoken in the back of the throat with like clicks. Like the way you say good evening is shokakap. And I can't even say it and sound authentic because it has to come from back here. But yes, language is a barrier and also a reason for the lack of opportunity for many of the rural families, because if they can't afford school and never learn Spanish, and it's hard for them to leave their community for industry or commerce because all of the business is done in the capital, Guatemala City. But if you still dress in your traditional clothing and speak your mother language, you have a hard time. There's discrimination there against the indigenous populations. So part of the lack of opportunity is their strong desire to maintain their culture, but also the lack of opportunities to assimilate because of the language. So yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
Well, at least they're keeping their culture.
Yes.
Because that was during the Civil War, they would hide their culture. Because during the Civil War, there were 200,000 to 300,000 disappeared. They would systematically, there was a genocide there, and villages were disappeared. And in Guatemala, you could tell where the people came from, specifically the women, by the weave of their skirts. You know, each area had their individual weave.
Like Scotland, right?
Right, but they would hide that during the time of conflict. And just to get with the different languages, I used to base out of a village called San Lucas Halaman. And it was on Lake Aguilan, and you could take a boat and go over to Santiago. Right? Santiago was, as the crow flies, 8 miles away, except for in San Lucas they spoke Quetzal, in Santiago they spoke Tun. They wore an entirely different weave. But there was, within that 8 miles, there were Volcano Adelan and Volcano Colaman in the way. So there were people who never made that 8-mile trip to the next town in their life. And it was just, as you got there, it was just an entirely different, not just different community, but just almost a different way of life.
That's right. And that still exists today. I think it'll probably always exist.
Oh, it'll always exist, yeah. Sorry for that.
No, I'm glad. I'm usually there's not someone in the crowd that has as much experience as you do, so that's great, and it adds, because I could talk forever, but I never include interesting tidbits like that. Well, I think that's all I had to share with you today. If you have any other questions for me, it might be easiest to channel them through Nancy or Tammy. She's left, but if any of you are interested, I do have some business cards that have my phone number and email address on them. You could always reach out directly to me with questions about the vitamins program or anything else. If based on what I've shared, there are other things you think you might have contacts for, like medical suppliers or something like that, then I'd be interested in really exploring any options, because that's what my life is dedicated to these days, is just trying to continue making a difference.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and thank Tammy for sending the request into the office. And I'm glad we were able to help you during this time of collection. You know, I think we started a little while back and we're going through the middle of December, so
Yeah, thank you
glad
very
to
much.
help. Glad to help, and we applaud your dedication to this certainly worthy project, you know, and thank you for coming today,
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the
and have a
invitation.
very safe trip.
Thank you.